Hi everyone. First of all, my name is Marian, and Marian Larry. I didn't go straight into teaching. I worked in Microsoft for 2 years, and I have to say that was very valuable for me as a teacher even today, because by working in a computer environment, industrial environment, I realised the value, or how important life skills are, how important it is to develop soft skills, not only where you're just teaching, say, or improving kids' academic abilities, but you're also in basically looking at the whole picture, improving their critical skills, enabling them to be independent learners, and to basically engage in their learning so they value things. When I was started off teaching, after 2 years in Microsoft, I did follow a very, you could say, traditional model where I was the centre of the room, where I professed I was the sole source of all the knowledge in the room. And I suppose I followed that model because it was something that I was taught in teaching school. It was something everyone around me was doing. It seemed to be what parents wanted, what the whole point system wanted. Get an A, get to college. But the journey to get there, they never looked at it. They never looked at what skills does a student need. Yes, you can get them to college, you can spoon feed them, but then they go to college and standing there, oh, where do I go to get to canteen? Oh, how do I cook? How do I do this? How do I get myself up in the morning to get to a lecture hall? We need a whole skill set to survive in life. So, when I started teaching, and I would admit I followed what was called the banking concept of education by Paulo Freire. Basically what I did was, I deposited knowledge into my students' head, where they would just store it, file it away, and then in an exam situation, they would just spit it out. Or I might ask them a question and they knew the answer. I said, great, I've taught them well. They're doing well. It's fantastic. I've done my job. That was in the beginning, but deep down I was still thinking to myself, I'm not really happy here. I'm the one voice in the room. I'm not engaging with my students. I don't know who this person is I'm teaching. I don't know what's going on behind it. I can see in their eyes they're bored with me. I can see they're not paying attention. I am trying to use different tones. I'm doing everything I've been taught, but I wasn't happy. So in 2003, I was really, really happy because the new science syllabus came out. For the first time ever, we were going to assess students on the practical side. 35% of the junior cert marks were going towards students where they would basically investigate a scenario. Now this is the picture I had from reading the syllabus. They were going to develop science processes, skills, literacy skills, and so on. So I decided, yes, I'm going to adopt inquiry-based learning. But then I looked and I went, well, okay, great, we've got a new curriculum, but there seemed to be no support from the department in order for me to attend in-service courses, upskill, and it was left basically to companies like Irish Science Teacher Association, Discovery Science, to basically where they set up professional courses where you could go to them and attend them in your own time, which I didn't mind doing. Because I instilled inquiry-based, I encouraged young scientists, various projects where often even Michael was showing a clip of one student. We have James McMahon. He's over in working on CNA, an American channel, and basically how he fell into that. We were up in the Young Scientists, and RT asked him, would he like to present in front of the camera a slot for the Young Scientists? From that day onwards, James became a broadcaster. There was nothing else, even in my physics class, he was still going to be, I said, that's fantastic. I said, you found something, study physics, you can do sound, you know, learn about lightning and all, or lightning, sorry, light, and that concept. So anyway, I adopted inquiry-based learning. I said, and this is very important, okay, I mightn't have had the support, but I suppose it's from my background of how I've strived through the education system. I've always done my best. I said, look, Marian, you look up online, look up the tools, you adapt them, take this curriculum and adapt it to what you're comfortable in teaching. I have to say, my science rooms, my classrooms, if you look on the outside, you would say, where is actually the teacher? And even one day my principal came into the room and said, is there no teacher in this room? And I was actually under the table because we were doing light experiments and the light was so bad in the room. And I came up and went, oh, I'm here. And he couldn't believe it. But now, I'm not saying they were walking around, but everyone had a purpose in the room. And that's very important. Every one of my students has a purpose. They contribute to the voice in the room. They contribute to the learning in the room. And no matter what my students do, I believe every student has some talent, some gift, something that they can contribute to society. If we all want to be doctors, if we all want to be lecturers, teachers, wouldn't it be boring in our life? What happened then, I decided, look, I need some validation for the way I'm teaching. maybe data. I needed something that was going to say, yeah, Marian, you're doing it right. Because sometimes I did lose confidence because I looked at, oh, the curriculum says I should be doing it this way, or parents want more points, they want their students to score high, they want this, they want that. Anyway, I decided to do the Masters, and I have to say this has been a huge learning curve for me. Here I am today. I was asked before Christmas, would I like to become a member of the Inspiring Science team in DCU? And one of my first jobs was to compose the narrative. Now, I'm going to explain and just move on to the slide to explain that a bit more. But before I do, I want to explain my concerns. And what are my concerns which I've reflected so much? If you look at this graph here, you can see that the amount of students who are taking physics and chemistry, this is from the task force in 2010, 50% of senior students are taking biology, 35% combined with physics and chemistry are only taking physics and chemistry. But also what's more alarming, one of my concerns is that the amount of students in my school that are taking up these subjects, I now presently have no one doing physics at senior level. And I mean, it's alarming, it really is. The other thing, if you look at this graph here, is in 2009, 300 teachers were surveyed by the Irish Teachers Association. Like, I mean, yes, we wanted practical work, but look at this graph. How many teachers are helping their students? And that's in junior cert. After going through 3 years doing 30 mandatory experiments, the students are not able to do experiments on their own. They do not have the science process skills. They don't know how to analyse data. And as I said to my work colleagues, every year, teachers say, oh God, I'm using my lunchtime. I'm trying to get them to do this stuff. So in one way, the system has failed, that after 3 years, the students do not have the scientific skills to perform their own investigation, come up with their own procedure, their own conclusions, and their way of representing that data. You can see the task force in 2000, basically, it said 83% of first years liked science. But after 3 years, only 39% of students liked science. My research view consisted of 4 parts. I looked at inquiry-based learning. I looked at teachers' perceptions on inquiry-based learning and their attitudes towards it. I looked at how technology could scaffold and support inquiry-based learning, and I looked at our continued professional development. Now, just to explain briefly of inquiry-based learning, it's a natural process of learning that we've been carrying out since the day we were born. In an inquiry-based classroom, students ask questions. They investigate their own testable questions. In an inquiry-based classroom, teachers are facilitators, coaches. We model, we encourage our students. First of all, the Inspiring Science is a project funded by Europe. They are trying to basically deal with the big, huge problem that students are not engaged in science, they're disinterested in science. A lot of students are not, say, for example, taking it up with third level education. But just to explain how this simple template, I have to say, has changed me as a teacher. It divides your class, your inquiry-based class, into 5 learning activities. It shows you where to align the tools. It divides it up into whether you want to do as a whole class, an individual teacher, individual student, or as a group. The narrative is fantastic. It's not just a lesson plan. It's where a teacher describes how they're going to implement that lesson plan, how they're going to implement these learning activities. Okay, my next section was technology. And you can see here how my kids, and I have to quote Bill Gates because I worked with him for 2 years and I do agree with him, technology is just a tool. It's how as teachers, we scaffold students, motivate them to use it in an appropriate form. So yes, which has been mentioned here today, technology is a great thing, but it's how you integrate it into your values, your goals, your lesson plans, so that it's part of maybe your instructional, but at the same time, you can see the advantage of differentiation learning. It gives them they can personalise their learning. It increases my capability as a teacher in the classroom. My other section is teachers. These are all the excuses they look at. I haven't got time. Oh sure, it's worked for me up to now. I haven't got the resources. Like, all of these are excuses at the end of the day. You can take any activity in the science curriculum and change it into something inquiry-based learning. Just to take the 4th area that I investigated was continued professional development. A big problem I found when what the research was showing me, that a lot of the theory and knowledge that is learned in continued professional courses is not being translated into practice. And I think that basically we have to look at the format of the way the or continued professional is being implemented. At the moment it's very fragmented. It's usually done by an outside expert. And what I think is very important, that when we do go to these professional courses, it's okay as teachers if we make mistakes. It's okay if you don't get it right in the beginning, because this is all part of learning. We're like our students, we're inquiring into profession, we're learning as we go along. Now, why did I pick John Elliott's model? I actually had a big problem picking a model, because I found that a lot of models were very restrictive and I wasn't giving me enough scope to express myself. But the main reason why I settled on this model is that he was critical of fixing the idea. It allowed you to go back, change your idea. Allowed, as my project, my research evolved, my idea evolved. It also allowed several action steps within one cycle, and it allowed reflection and planning process after each cycle, and was very responsive to my research, because basically what I learned in cycle 1, when I implemented the inquiry-based template into my own practice, I used that to inform, and my students' kind of experience into the second cycle, into the content of my webinar. But I'm just going to move quickly to my cycle. It consists of 2 cycles. In the first cycle, I implemented the inquiry-based template into my practice. I looked at the benefits, I walked through it myself. Then in cycle 2, I had to come up with a way of where I could take that information and basically, not saying share it with other teachers. This part of the cycle was me reflecting my practice. But in cycle 2, what I have to say of all this whole thing, what I learned was, I go back to the fact I was always professing acquired-based learning to my fellow teachers. But I did a simple thing one day. In my focus group, I said, would any of you like to come in and observe my class? And one of the teachers came in and observed my class, and she went, oh my, this is really good. I can't believe how they're connecting things, they're recalling things that, you know, prior information from other chapters. And she said, and then I realised, I said to myself, oh my God, I've been doing it all wrong. This is what you should be doing, is demonstrating it. So if you demonstrate it, and people, especially teachers demonstrating to teachers, they can relate that this is good practice, this is something I can use. But basically this is what I did in cycle 1. You can see here, I researched suitable e-learning tools, I familiarised myself with the inquiry spirit science narratives, I composed a narrative and I enacted. And in that cycle, summarising everything, I became a better teacher because I included my students more in my instructional dialogue. I became more student-centred. I also reflected in and on my practice. In cycle 2, I took all the knowledge from focus groups, my whole circle of people that have supported me. But what I did first of all, I invited teachers, you can see in the first steps, because before I could design a webinar, I had to be very sensitive, because someone said there you could be very subjective. Because I was what would you say, I was in the club. No one had to convince me, I'm there. But how can I get other people to come in with me? And I realised I had to go back and look at teachers. What is stopping teachers from implementing inquiry-based learning? So I realised, look, if I invite a teacher, look, she gave me brilliant feedback, why she might find it difficult to implement it. I met with my focus group of 4 science teachers. They informed me what they talk about e-tools, the barriers they would face. And I took all of this, and then I planned my webinar and implemented. But I have to say, before I finish, that this part has been a huge learning curve, and I don't know what I need is a 3rd cycle to take what I've learned about presenting online and all the mistakes I made, because the first webinar I relied too much on content. I basically took too much content from what I knew, and I realised at the end of the day, do you know what, Marian, again you're using other people's ideas, opinions. In webinar 2 I went back to myself. I went back to what I think works for me. And if teachers want to take a small snippet of that and just use it, I'm happy. I'm happy if everyone's happy to tell the truth. Okay, don't look at this because this is chaos at the moment. I'm still making my conclusions, I'm still making my recommendations, but the bottom line is I can make claim to knowledge, never thought I could. Inquiry-based science templates, yes, they support teachers, they scaffold teachers, they lead you through the process. By dividing it into five learning activities, it's very flexible, allows students to, mold your students, but if you want to give a student more support, if you see them frustrated, you can come in and step in. But the main thing is that it scaffolds. The other thing, my own practice evolved because I'm reflecting more, and webinars allowed me to present my information in a very interactive way. If I was to go forward, I would say I did, like I'm doing now. In my first webinar, was a sage on the stage, just kept proclaiming my facts. I would introduce more reflective discussions. I mean, every teacher can bring everything to the inquiry-based table. Everyone can have input, and that's what I do with my own students, and teachers can contribute to this. I think that I regret not doing a video, because I tried to use a camera to take pictures of my kids. And I said, you know what, you can't get feelings, you can't get emotions, and I regret that. And I think going forward, webinars should include video footage of teachers, you know, engaging with students and doing inquiry-based learning. Okay, curriculum reform, they got to, on 2015 we've a new junior science course coming out. They've got to support it. They've got to put some structure in place for teachers to give them support to adapt to this new method. Thank you very much.